It was a quiet Saturday afternoon at the Tiger Fist Academy, a small karate dojo located on the edge of town. The air smelled faintly of sweat and polish, mingling with the sound of feet shuffling against the wooden floor. Students moved back and forth in neat rows, practicing their kicks and punches under the watchful eye of Mr. Blake, the head instructor. He stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, his sharp gaze scanning every movement like a hawk hunting its prey. Lily Parker adjusted the belt around her waist nervously. She had only started training here a few months ago but had already shown promise. Her brother Ryan often teased her about how serious she looked when she practiced her stances in front of the mirror at home. Today was special. It was her first day in the advanced class. Lily felt excited yet anxious. She wanted to prove herself, especially after hearing so much about how tough this level could be. Mr. Blake clapped his hands loudly, signaling the students to line up. "All right, everyone," he barked, pacing slowly along the row. "Today we're focusing on control and precision. Remember, martial arts isn't just about power. It's about respect. For yourself, your opponent, and your teacher." The students nodded silently, some swallowing hard. Everyone knew Mr. Blake wasn't someone you wanted to cross. He ran the dojo with an iron fist, demanding perfection from all who stepped onto the mat. While many admired his dedication, others whispered about his temper behind closed doors. Lily tried not to think about those rumors too much. After all, she'd always believed that deep down he cared about his students. After a series of warm-up exercises, Mr. Blake called out names one by one to demonstrate basic techniques. When it was Lily's turn, she stepped forward, heart pounding. She focused on keeping her breathing steady as she performed a roundhouse kick, followed by a punch combination. As she finished, she glanced up at Mr. Blake, hoping for approval. Instead, his expression remained unreadable. "Not bad," he said, curtly, though his tone lacked warmth. "But you need more speed. Try again." Lily nodded and prepared to repeat the sequence. Just as she raised her leg for another kick, a thought popped into her mind. Her grandfather had taught her something similar once, a technique passed down from his days as a world champion. Without thinking, she blurted out, "My grandpa used to say that balance is key. Maybe I should focus on—" She stopped mid-sentence when she noticed Mr. Blake's eyes narrowing dangerously. For a moment, there was complete silence in the dojo. Then, his voice cut through the stillness like a knife. "What did you just say?" Lily blinked, confused. I was just saying that my grandpa—" "Are you trying to teach me?" Mr. Blake snapped, taking a step closer. His voice grew louder with each word. "Do you think you know better than me? Is that what you're implying?" "No, sir," Lily stammered, shaking her head quickly. "I didn't mean—" Before she could finish, Mr. Blake exploded. "Don't interrupt me," he shouted, pointing a finger at her. "You come here uninvited talking about your grandpa? Who does he think he is? Some washed-up has-been?" Lily's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She hadn't meant to offend anyone. All she wanted was to share a little piece of herself, something that made her proud. But now, standing there under Mr. Blake's piercing glare, she felt smaller than ever. The tension in the room thickened. Other students exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to do. No one dared to speak up. Even Jake, Lily's best friend in the class, stayed rooted to his spot, fists clenched tightly. "You want to talk about champions?" Mr. Blake sneered, leaning down until his face was inches away from Lily's. "Let me tell you something, kid. Real champions don't brag. They work hard and earn their place. You haven't earned anything yet." His words stung worse than any slap could have. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. She refused to cry in front of him, refused to let him see how much his words hurt. But then, without warning, Mr. Blake's hand shot out, striking her across the cheek with a loud crack. The impact sent Lily stumbling backward, clutching her face in shock. Gasps echoed throughout the dojo as the other students froze in disbelief. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Lily stared at Mr. Blake, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Her cheek burned where his palm had connected, and her vision blurred with tears she couldn't hold back anymore. Somewhere in the distance, she heard Jake calling her name, but his voice sounded muffled, far away. Jake finally found the courage to move. Rushing to Lily's side, he placed a protective arm around her shoulders. "That's enough," he yelled at Mr. Blake, his voice trembling with anger. "You can't hit her!" Mr. Blake turned his fury toward Jake. "Stay out of this, boy," he growled. "This doesn't concern you." "Yes, it does," Jake shot back, refusing to back down. "You can't treat people like this. It's wrong." By now, murmurs filled the room as other students began whispering among themselves. Some looked horrified while others seemed conflicted, torn between loyalty to their instructor and the injustice they had just witnessed. Mr. Blake straightened up, regaining his composure. His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "If either of you says a word about this outside these walls, you'll regret it. Do I make myself clear?" Neither Lily nor Jake responded. Instead, they exchanged a glance, silently agreeing to leave together. With Jake's help, Lily gathered her things and hurried out of the dojo, leaving behind the oppressive atmosphere and the man who had shattered her trust. As they walked home in silence, Lily's mind raced with questions. Why had Mr. Blake reacted so violently? Was it really her fault? And most importantly, what was she supposed to do now? When Lily and Jake finally reached home, the weight of what had happened began to settle heavily on Lily's shoulders. She sat quietly on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor while clutching the ice pack Jake had insisted she use for her cheek. It wasn't just the physical pain that bothered her. It was the shame, the confusion, and the overwhelming sense of betrayal. How could someone she trusted so much turn on her like that? Ryan, her older brother, noticed something was wrong as soon as he walked into the house. He saw the red mark on Lily's face and immediately demanded answers. At first, Lily tried to brush it off, saying she'd fallen during training, but Ryan wasn't convinced. His sharp eyes caught the hesitation in her voice, the way she avoided meeting his gaze. Gently, he sat beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lily," he said softly, "you can tell me anything. What really happened?" Tears spilled over before she could stop them. Between sobs, Lily recounted the entire incident. The casual mention of her grandfather, Mr. Blake's explosive reaction, and the unthinkable moment when he struck her. Ryan listened silently, his jaw tightening with each word. By the time she finished, his hands were clenched into fists. "That guy hit you?" Ryan asked, his voice low and dangerous. "He actually hit you?" Lily nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "I didn't mean to make him mad. I thought it would be okay to talk about my grandpa. He was such a good person." Ryan exhaled sharply, trying to keep his emotions in check. "This isn't your fault, Lil. None of this is your fault. That man has no right to treat anyone like that, especially not a kid." Determined to take action, Ryan marched downstairs to speak with their parents. Their mom and dad were sitting at the dining table discussing bills and grocery lists as usual. When Ryan burst in, demanding they listen to what had happened at the dojo, the mood shifted instantly. Their mom gasped when she heard about the slap, while their dad frowned deeply, clearly troubled. "We need to do something about this," Ryan urged, pacing back and forth. "We can't let him get away with hurting Lily." Their mom hesitated, wringing her hands nervously. "But Ryan, Mr. Blake is well respected in the community. People trust him. If we accuse him of abuse, they might not believe us. And, even if they did," their dad added cautiously, "it could cause problems for Lily. She might be labeled as difficult or troublemaking. Is that what you want?" Ryan stopped pacing and turned to face them, his frustration evident. "So, we're just supposed to ignore it, pretend nothing happened? Mom, Dad, this isn't just about Lily. It's about every other kid who goes to that dojo. What if he does this to someone else? Are we going to sit here and do nothing?" The room fell silent as the weight of Ryan's words sank in. Lily stood in the doorway, listening to the conversation. She felt torn between wanting justice and fearing the consequences. What if her parents were right? What if speaking up only made things worse? Later that evening, after dinner, Ryan retreated to his room with his laptop. Determined to uncover the truth, he started searching online for any information about Mr. Blake. It didn't take long for him to find a few forum posts where former students described similar experiences: harsh punishments, verbal abuse, and even hints of physical violence. One post mentioned a complaint filed years ago, but it appeared nothing had come of it. Encouraged by these findings, Ryan dug deeper. He discovered a local news article from 5 years earlier reporting allegations against Mr. Blake. According to the piece, several parents had accused him of mistreating their children, but the case was dropped due to lack of evidence. The article ended with a quote from Mr. Blake himself, claiming the accusations were baseless and motivated by jealousy. Armed with this new information, Ryan felt a surge of determination. He knew it wouldn't be easy to confront Mr. Blake, but he also knew they couldn't stay silent. The next morning, he shared everything he'd found with Lily. "Look," he said, pointing to the screen. "You're not alone in this. Other people have spoken out before, but no one listened. Maybe it's time someone did." Lily stared at the articles, her heart pounding. For the first time since the incident, she felt a flicker of hope. If others had faced the same thing, maybe together they could make a difference. Still, fear lingered in the back of her mind. What if they don't believe us, Ryan? What if they side with him? Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll fight harder. We'll gather more proof, talk to other students, and show everyone exactly who Mr. Blake really is. But we can't do it alone. You ready to stand up for yourself?" Lily hesitated for a moment, then nodded firmly. "Yeah, I'm ready." Meanwhile, Jake hadn't forgotten about what happened either. At school the following Monday, he pulled Lily aside during lunch and handed her a folded piece of paper. "Here," he said quietly. "I wrote down some stuff my dad taught me about self-defense. Thought it might help." Unfolding the note, Lily found a list of basic techniques along with encouraging words written in Jake's messy handwriting. "Thanks," she said, managing a small smile. "That means a lot." Jake shrugged, though his expression remained serious. "I know, you're scared, but you shouldn't be. You're stronger than you think, Lil, and if you ever need backup, I've got your back." Over the next few days, Lily began to rebuild her confidence. With Ryan's support, she decided to reach out to some of the other students from the dojo. She chose her words carefully, explaining what had happened without sounding accusatory. To her surprise, many of them admitted they'd witnessed or experienced similar behavior from Mr. Blake, but had been too afraid to say anything. One girl, named Emma, confided that Mr. Blake had once pushed her to the ground during class because she couldn't perform a move correctly. Another boy, Sam, revealed that he'd quit karate altogether after being yelled at relentlessly for weeks. Hearing these stories strengthened Lily's resolve. She realized she wasn't fighting just for herself anymore. She was fighting for all of them. As the pieces came together, Ryan suggested they compile everything into a formal report and present it to the Academy's board of directors. "If we go in prepared," he explained, "they'll have no choice but to take us seriously." Lily agreed, though the thought of facing Mr. Blake again made her stomach churn. Still, she reminded herself why she was doing this, not just for revenge, but for justice, for respect, for every child who deserved to learn martial arts in a safe and supportive environment. By the end of the week, Lily and Ryan had gathered enough evidence to feel confident in their case. They practiced what they would say, rehearsed possible questions, and even role-played scenarios to prepare for whatever might come their way. Though nerves still gnawed at Lily's insides, she clung to the belief that standing up for what was right was worth every ounce of fear. Little did she know, fate had one more twist in store, a twist that would change everything forever. The days following Lily's decision to confront Mr. Blake were filled with preparation and anxiety. Every time she thought about facing him again, her chest tightened and her hands grew clammy. But there was no turning back now. She had promised herself and Ryan that she would see this through no matter how hard it got. One evening, after another long day of strategizing with Ryan, Lily decided to take a walk to clear her head. Her neighborhood wasn't particularly exciting, but the nearby park always seemed to calm her nerves. As she wandered along the winding paths, she noticed an elderly man sitting on a bench near the fountain. He looked familiar somehow, though she couldn't quite place him. His silver hair gleamed softly in the fading sunlight, and he wore a simple plaid shirt with jeans. A flock of pigeons surrounded him as he scattered bits of birdseed from a small paper bag. Curious, Lily slowed her pace and watched him for a moment. There was something comforting about the way he moved, slow, deliberate, and full of purpose. She felt drawn to him without understanding why. As she approached, her foot caught on a loose rock, causing her to stumble. Her backpack slipped off her shoulder and landed on the ground with a thud, spilling its contents everywhere. Papers fluttered like leaves in the breeze, and her textbooks skidded across the path. Embarrassed, Lily dropped to her knees to gather her things. Before she could retrieve everything, the man stood up and walked over to her. "Here, let me help you," he said, his voice calm and steady. Lily looked up, startled. Up close, she realized where she'd seen him before. In old movies her grandpa used to watch. It was Chuck Norris. She blinked, half expecting him to disappear like some sort of mirage. But he didn't. Instead, he knelt beside her and began picking up her papers with surprising gentleness. "Thank you," Lily mumbled, still trying to process the surreal situation. I didn't mean to bother you." "No bother at all," Chuck replied with a faint smile. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. Once they had collected everything, Chuck handed her the stack of papers. Their eyes met briefly, and Lily felt an odd sense of reassurance. For reasons she couldn't explain, she trusted this man, even though she barely knew him. "So," Chuck said casually, gesturing toward the bench, "what brings you to the park today?" Lily hesitated. She didn't usually share her problems with strangers, but something about Chuck made her want to talk. Taking a deep breath, she told him everything: the incident with Mr. Blake, her fear of speaking out, and her determination to stand up for herself and others. Chuck listened intently, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful. "That took a lot of courage," he said finally. "Not many people your age would have the strength to face something like that." "But what if I'm not strong enough?" Lily asked quietly, her voice trembling. "What if I mess up or freeze when it matters most?" Chuck smiled gently. "Strength isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right even when you're scared. And trust me, Lily, you've already shown more strength than you realize." His words struck a chord deep within her. For the first time since the incident, she felt a glimmer of hope, not just for confronting Mr. Blake, but for believing in herself again. "I wish I could learn to fight like you," Lily blurted out suddenly, surprising even herself. "Maybe. Then I wouldn't feel so helpless." Chuck chuckled softly. "Fighting isn't just about throwing punches, Lily. It's about knowing when to fight and when not to. Discipline, patience, and respect are far more important than any kick or punch." Lily tilted her head, intrigued. "Do you really think someone like me could learn that?" "I know you can," Chuck said firmly. "If you're willing to put in the effort, I'd be happy to teach you a few things. Not here, of course," he added with a wink. "We'll need a proper space." Overwhelmed by his offer, Lily could only nod. "Yes, thank you. I'll do whatever it takes." They agreed to meet early the next morning at the same park. Before leaving, Chuck placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember, Lily, true champions aren't defined by their victories. They're defined by how they treat others and themselves. Keep that in mind, okay?" "I will," Lily promised, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The next morning, Lily arrived at the park just as the sun began to rise. Chuck was already waiting for her, standing beneath a large oak tree with his hands clasped behind his back. He greeted her with a warm smile and motioned for her to join him. "First things first," he began, leading her to a patch of soft grass. "Let's start with breathing. Martial arts isn't just physical, it's mental too. Focus on your breath. Feel it flow in and out." For the next hour, Chuck guided Lily through basic exercises designed to build focus and control. He taught her how to center her energy, move with precision, and stay grounded under pressure. Though the techniques were simple, Lily found them surprisingly challenging and incredibly rewarding. You're doing great, Chuck encouraged her after she successfully completed a series of slow, deliberate movements. But remember, martial arts is about more than just learning moves. It's about understanding yourself and respecting others. By the end of the session, Lily felt exhausted, but exhilarated. For the first time in days, she felt like she had some control over her life again. As they parted ways, Chuck reminded her to practice daily and promised to meet her again the following morning. Over the next several weeks, Lily trained diligently under Chuck's guidance. Each lesson brought new insights, not just about martial arts, but about life itself. He emphasized the importance of humility, perseverance, and kindness, teaching her that true strength came from within. One morning, as they took a break beneath the oak tree, Lily mustered the courage to ask the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Do you think I'm ready to face Mr. Blake? Really ready?" Chuck studied her for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. "Are you asking me if you're physically prepared or mentally?" "Both," Lily admitted. Chuck nodded slowly. "Physically, you've learned enough to hold your own, but mentally, it's up to you. Are you ready to stand up for what's right, not just for yourself, but for everyone affected by his actions?" Lily thought about the other students who had confided in her, the fear in their voices, and the injustice they had endured. She thought about Emma, Sam, and all the others who deserved better. Finally, she looked Chuck in the eye and said, "Yes, I'm ready." Chuck smiled approvingly. "Then let's make sure you're fully prepared. Because when the time comes, you won't just be fighting for yourself, you'll be fighting for something much bigger." With renewed determination, Lily threw herself into her training, knowing that the real battle lay ahead. And for the first time, she believed she might actually win. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, Lily made her way to the park. It became her sanctuary, a place where she could leave behind the fear, anger, and uncertainty that had consumed her life since the incident. At the dojo, Chuck Norris was waiting for her each time, always calm and patient, ready to guide her through another day of training. At first, Lily struggled. Martial arts wasn't just about physical strength. It required focus, balance, and discipline, qualities she hadn't fully developed yet. But Chuck never rushed her. He broke down every technique into small, manageable steps, explaining not only how to execute them, but also why they mattered. "Karate isn't just about fighting," he often reminded her. "It's about protecting yourself and others. You don't use these skills to hurt people. You use them to stop harm from happening." Lily absorbed every word, practicing tirelessly until her muscles ached and her legs felt like jelly. She learned how to stand firmly, how to move swiftly, and how to channel her energy efficiently. Each lesson brought new challenges, but with each challenge came growth. Slowly but surely, she began to see herself changing, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. One particularly grueling morning, Chuck decided it was time to test her progress. They moved to an open area of the park, surrounded by tall trees and chirping birds. Chuck stood across from her, his posture relaxed but alert. "All right, Lily," he said, crossing his arms. "Let's see what you've got. Show me everything you've learned so far." Lily took a deep breath, centering herself as Chuck had taught her. Then she stepped forward, executing a series of punches, kicks, and blocks with precision. Her movements were fluid now, no longer clumsy or hesitant. She finished with a powerful roundhouse kick, landing perfectly balanced on one foot. Chuck nodded approvingly. "Good job. Your form is improving and your focus is stronger than ever. But remember, martial arts isn't just about looking good. It's about being prepared for anything." To illustrate his point, Chuck suddenly lunged toward her, simulating an attack. Instinctively, Lily raised her arms to block him, countering with a quick jab followed by a sidekick. Though her strikes didn't connect, Chuck easily evaded them. He smiled proudly. "That's the spirit," he said. "You're learning to anticipate and react. That's crucial in any situation." Over time, Chuck began incorporating lessons beyond physical techniques. He taught her the importance of mental resilience, showing her how to stay calm under pressure. He shared stories from his own life, talking about times when he'd faced adversity and how he'd overcome it through perseverance and humility. "You'll face moments when you feel like giving up," he told her one morning as they rested, beneath the oak tree. "And that's okay. Everyone does. But true champions keep going, not because they're perfect, but because they refuse to quit." These words resonated deeply with Lily. She thought about all the times she'd doubted herself, wondering if she was strong enough to confront Mr. Blake. Now, standing here with Chuck, she realized that strength wasn't something you were born with, it was something you built piece by piece, day by day. As the weeks passed, Lily noticed subtle changes in herself. She walked taller, spoke more confidently, and carried herself with a newfound sense of purpose. Even Ryan commented on how different she seemed. "You look unstoppable," he joked one evening as they reviewed their plan to expose Mr. Blake. "Are you sure you still need my help?" Lily laughed, though her expression turned serious a moment later. "I'll always need your help, Ryan, but yeah, I feel ready. Like I can handle whatever comes my way." Despite her growing confidence, Lily couldn't shake the looming reality of what lay ahead. Confronting Mr. Blake wouldn't be easy, and she knew it would take more than just physical preparation. It would require courage, strategy, and unwavering determination. One morning, as they wrapped up another intense training session, Chuck sat down on the grass and motioned for Lily to join him. "There's something we need to talk about," he said, his tone unusually serious. Lily hesitated before sitting cross-legged beside him. "What is it?" "I've heard rumors," Chuck began, gazing out at the horizon. "About Mr. Blake. People are starting to notice his behavior. Some parents are pulling their kids out of the dojo. There's unrest brewing." Lily's heart raced. "Does that mean we won't have to do anything? Maybe he'll get fired anyway." Chuck shook his head. "Not necessarily. Rumors aren't enough to bring someone like him down. If you really want to make a difference, you'll need to step up and speak out, publicly." The weight of his words settled heavily on Lily's shoulders. Speaking out meant putting herself directly in the spotlight and risking backlash from Mr. Blake and his supporters. But she also knew Chuck was right. If she stayed silent, nothing would change. "What should I do?" she asked quietly. Chuck placed a hand on her shoulder. "Tell your story. Share what happened, not just to you, but to others. Let people see the truth. And when the time comes, show them exactly who you are and who he is." Lily nodded, steeling herself for what was to come. She trusted Chuck completely, and his belief in her gave her the strength to believe in herself. In the days leading up to the Tiger Fist Academy demonstration event, a public showcase where students performed in front of parents, instructors, and local officials, Lily practiced relentlessly. Chuck helped her refine her techniques, ensuring she was ready for anything Mr. Blake might throw at her. But more importantly, he prepared her mentally, teaching her how to remain composed and articulate even in the face of hostility. "You're not just fighting for yourself anymore," Chuck reminded her during their final training session. "You're fighting for every student who's been hurt, silenced, or ignored. Remember that when you step onto that mat." On the morning of the event, Lily woke up early, her stomach churning with nerves. She dressed carefully in her white karate uniform, tying her belt with deliberate precision. As she stared at her reflection in the mirror, she repeated Chuck's words to herself. Focus. Breathe. Believe. When she arrived at the dojo, the atmosphere was tense. Parents milled about, chatting nervously, while students stretched and warmed up. Mr. Blake stood near the entrance, glaring at anyone who dared meet his gaze. When he spotted Lily, his eyes narrowed dangerously. "You have some nerve showing up here," he muttered as she passed him. "But don't think this changes anything." Lily didn't respond. Instead, she found Ryan and Jake in the crowd, both offering silent support. Together, they waited for the event to begin. Finally, Mr. Blake called everyone to attention. The demonstration started with younger students performing basic moves, followed by intermediate-level routines. As the advanced class took the stage, Lily stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "Today," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I'm not just here to perform. I'm here to tell the truth." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Mr. Blake's face darkened, but Lily didn't falter. With Chuck's teachings guiding her every word and movement, she revealed the truth about Mr. Blake's abusive behavior and proved once and for all that she was no longer afraid. The moment Lily stepped onto the mat at the Tiger Fist Academy demonstration event, she could feel every eye in the room on her. The air was thick with tension, and the hum of whispered conversations filled the space. Parents sat nervously in folding chairs along the edges of the room, while students stood or sat cross-legged on the floor, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and fear. At the front of the room, Mr. Blake watched her intently, his arms crossed tightly over his chest, his jaw clenched. Lily took a deep breath, focusing on the lessons Chuck had drilled into her mind over the past weeks. She reminded herself that this wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. It was about standing up for herself and all the other kids who had suffered under Mr. Blake's cruelty. With that thought anchoring her, she began to speak. "Today," she said, her voice clear and steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach, "I'm not here just to perform. I'm here to tell you what really happens behind closed doors at this dojo." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others leaned forward, eager to hear more. Mr. Blake's face darkened instantly. He uncrossed his arms and stepped toward her, his movements sharp and deliberate. "What nonsense are you spouting now?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the murmuring like a knife. "This is a demonstration, not a soapbox." But Lily didn't back down. She locked eyes with him, refusing to let his anger intimidate her. "It's the truth," she continued, raising her voice slightly so everyone could hear. "You hit me, you yelled at me, you made me and others feel small and afraid. That's not what martial arts is supposed to be about." For a moment, there was complete silence in the room. Then slowly, whispers erupted again, louder this time. Parents exchanged worried glances and several students nodded subtly in agreement. Even some of the instructors looked uneasy, shifting awkwardly where they stood. Mr. Blake's face turned red with rage. "How dare you accuse me of such lies?" he shouted, pointing a finger at her. "You're nothing but a spoiled brat looking for attention." Lily flinched slightly at the harshness of his words, but she forced herself to stay composed. This was exactly what Chuck had prepared her for. The attempt to discredit her, to make her doubt herself, but she wouldn't fall for it. Not anymore. "It's not a lie," she replied firmly, her voice unwavering. "And I'm not alone. Ask Emma. Ask Sam. Ask any of the students who've been hurt by you. They'll tell you the same thing." At the mention of names, several heads turned in the crowd. Emma, sitting near the back with her mother, looked down at her lap, her cheeks flushed. Sam, standing beside his dad, shifted uncomfortably but gave a tiny nod of confirmation. Other students exchanged knowing looks, silently acknowledging the truth of Lily's words. Mr. Blake seemed to realize he was losing control of the situation. His gaze darted around the room, searching for allies, but most people avoided meeting his eyes. Desperation crept into his expression, and he snapped. "Enough of this. If you think you're so tough, why don't we settle this right here, show everyone how strong you really are." Before anyone could react, he lunged at her, aiming a swift punch toward her shoulder. It was clearly meant to humiliate her, to prove to the crowd that she was no match for him. But Lily was ready. With perfect form, she sidestepped his attack and countered with a quick block, pushing his arm away. The movement was smooth and controlled, a testament to the hours she'd spent training under Chuck's guidance. Gasps echoed through the room as Mr. Blake stumbled backward, caught off guard by her speed and precision. "You want to fight?" Lily asked, her tone even but firm. "Fine, but remember, you started this." Infuriated, Mr. Blake came at her. Again, this time throwing a series of punches and kicks. Each one was met with calm, calculated responses from Lily. She moved with grace and confidence, using techniques Chuck had taught her to neutralize his attacks without resorting to aggression. When he tried to grab her arm, she twisted out of his grip. When he aimed a kick at her legs, she stepped back just in time, leaving him off balance. The audience watched in stunned silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. Here was a young girl, a beginner by most standards, holding her own against a seasoned instructor known for his strictness and strength. It was impossible not to see the stark contrast between them. Mr. Blake's wild, uncontrolled movements versus Lily's disciplined, focused ones. Finally, after another failed attempt to overpower her, Mr. Blake tripped over his own feet and fell hard onto the mat. The sound of his body hitting the floor reverberated through the silent room. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the crowd, growing louder until the entire room erupted in cheers. Lily stood still, breathing heavily but keeping her composure. She glanced at Ryan and Jake, who were clapping enthusiastically, and then at Emma and Sam, both of whom were smiling through tears. Even some of the parents who had initially doubted her were now nodding in approval. Mr. Blake scrambled to his feet, his face a mixture of fury and humiliation. "This isn't over," he snarled, turning to the crowd. "She's lying. None of this proves anything." But his words fell flat. The board members of the academy, seated at a table near the front, exchanged grave looks. One of them, a middle-aged woman with glasses, stood up and addressed the room. "Mr. Blake," she said, her tone authoritative, "given the allegations brought forward today, and the evidence we've seen, we have no choice but to suspend you pending further investigation. Please leave the premises immediately." For a moment, Mr. Blake looked like he might argue, but the weight of the situation finally sank in. With one last glare at Lily, he stormed out of the dojo, slamming the door behind him. As the adrenaline began to fade, Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had done it. She had stood up for herself, and for everyone else who had been silenced. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of triumph. Ryan rushed to her side, pulling her into a tight hug. "You did it, Lil," he whispered, his voice thick with pride. "You really did." Jake joined them a moment later, grinning ear to ear. "That was incredible. Did you see the look on his face when you dropped him? Priceless." Lily laughed softly, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. As the crowd dispersed and the reality of what had happened settled in, she realized something important. This wasn't just a victory for her. It was a victory for everyone who believed in fairness, respect, and justice. In the days that followed, news of the incident spread quickly throughout the community. Parents withdrew their children from the academy, demanding accountability and reform. The board launched a full investigation into Mr. Blake's conduct, uncovering years of unchecked abuse and misconduct. Meanwhile, Lily became a local hero, inspiring others to speak out against injustice wherever they saw it. Though the road ahead wouldn't be easy, Lily knew she had taken the first step toward real change. And with Chuck's wisdom guiding her, she was ready to keep moving forward, one punch, one kick, and one brave decision at a time. In the weeks following the dramatic confrontation at the Tiger Fist Academy, life began to change. Not just for Lily, but for everyone involved. News of Mr. Blake's suspension spread quickly, sparking conversations across the community about accountability and reform in martial arts schools. Parents who had once blindly trusted the academy started asking questions, demanding transparency and better protection for their children. The board members worked tirelessly to rebuild trust, hiring new instructors committed to fostering a safe and respectful environment. For Lily, the aftermath was both overwhelming and empowering. She became something of a local hero, with strangers stopping her in the grocery store or at school to thank her for speaking out. At first, the attention made her uncomfortable. She hadn't done it for fame or recognition. She'd done it because it was the right thing to do. But over time, she realized that her actions had inspired others to stand up against injustice, and that gave her a sense of purpose she'd never felt before. Ryan and Jake remained her biggest supporters, always ready with words of encouragement when she needed them most. Even Emma and Sam, who had initially been too scared to speak out, came forward to share their stories publicly. Together, they formed a tight-knit group, united by their shared experiences and determination to create positive change. One evening, as the sun set over the park where Lily had trained with Chuck, she found herself sitting alone on the familiar wooden bench. Her mind wandered back to everything that had happened, the fear, the struggle, the triumph, and she couldn't help but feel grateful for the unexpected turn her life had taken. Without Chuck's guidance, she doubted she would have found the strength to face Mr. Blake head-on. As if reading her thoughts, Chuck appeared beside her, carrying a small bag of birdseed. He sat down quietly, scattering seeds for the pigeons that gathered around him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then finally, Chuck broke the silence. "You've come a long way," he said softly, his eyes fixed on the birds. "I'm proud of you." Lily smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you, Chuck. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You taught me so much, not just about karate, but about being brave and standing up for what's right." Chuck nodded thoughtfully. "Martial arts is more than punches and kicks. It's about character, about becoming the best version of yourself. And you've done exactly that." His words meant the world to her. Knowing that someone like Chuck believed in her gave her the confidence to dream bigger, to imagine a future where she could make an even greater impact. Inspired by her journey, Lily decided to open her own dojo, a place where kids could learn martial arts in a supportive and nurturing environment. With Ryan's help, she drafted a business plan, secured funding from local sponsors, and found a cozy space near the edge of town. They named it Champion Spirit Dojo, a nod to the values Chuck had instilled in her: discipline, respect, and kindness. The grand opening was a modest affair, but the turnout exceeded Lily's expectations. Parents brought their children, eager to enroll them in classes led by someone who truly understood what it meant to be a role model. Emma and Sam volunteered to assist with beginner lessons, while Ryan handled administrative tasks behind the scenes. Even Jake stopped by occasionally to lend a hand, sharing stories of how his dad had taught him self-defense. On the first day of class, Lily stood at the front of the room, watching as a group of wide-eyed kids lined up neatly on the ride mat. Their excitement was contagious, filling the dojo with energy and hope. As she guided them through basic stances and movements, she couldn't help but smile. This was where she belonged, teaching others not just how to fight, but how to grow, stronger in every way. After the session ended, Chuck visited the dojo for the first time. He walked slowly around the room, taking in the colorful banners on the walls and the cheerful chatter of students packing up their gear. When he reached Lily, he placed a hand on her shoulder and gave her a knowing look. "This is your legacy, now," he said simply. "Carry it well." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes as she hugged him tightly. "Thank you for everything, Chuck. I'll never forget what you've done for me." Chuck chuckled warmly. "You don't need to thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing, that's all the thanks I need." With those final words, Chuck slipped away quietly, disappearing into the crowd outside. Though Lily never saw him, again she often thought about their time together in the park. The lessons, the laughter, the moments of quiet reflection. Every time she stepped onto the mat to teach, she carried a piece of him with her. Years passed and Champion Spirit Dojo grew into a thriving community hub. Kids of all ages flocked to its classes, drawn not only by Lily's skill but also by her compassion and dedication. Many went on to earn black belts just like Lily, and some even opened their own dojos, spreading the same values far and wide. On quiet nights, when the dojo was empty and the moonlight streamed through the windows, Lily would sit cross-legged, on the mat staring up at the banner above her. Beneath it hung a framed photo of Chuck signed with the words, "True champions fight not to win, but to protect." She smiled, remembering the man who had changed her life forever. Somewhere, out there under the stars, she knew he was smiling too.